Good morning, this is Robin Bieber on ChartTalk on the 10th of June at 6:45 in the morning London time. The contracts are moving seemingly at a different pace. The crudes are slightly more vulnerable to corrections than the products. This is evidenced by the fact that the products all held their 5-day moving averages yesterday, didn't breach them and bounced from them, whereas the crudes went through the 5s and down to the 8s, which they subsequently held. So the key is really if the crudes can hold their 8s today and the products can hold their 5s. If not, the products will then move down to their 8-day moving averages, which in turn would make the crudes move down to their 13-day moving averages. It all sounds a bit complex, but basically the moving averages are indicating that the contracts, the crudes and the products are moving at a slightly different pace, but still in an uptrend, which is important. The stochastics are negative on the crudes, which isn't great, and they're very high and wobbly on the products, as evidenced here and on RBOB. Now let's just have a look at RBOB first. Here, the 5-day moving average wasn't even tested yesterday. It was neared, but it wasn't tested. RBOB was too strong, which in and of itself may be an early warning signal that RBOB is going to try and hold the complex up if there is a correction. That may or may not occur. It can only do that if it's holding above the 5-day moving average, which comes in today around about 119.58. That must hold, or it's going down to the 8-day at 116.09. If it does that, it will take the crudes down to the 13-day moving averages because they won't hold their 8s if RBOB fails at its 5. If it maintains above the 5-day, there's a strong indication that the uptrend is intact, all right, a little bit challenged on the crudes, but it's intact. That's providing it holds above the 5-day at 119.58. It then needs to move over a critical resistance found on the first line continuation chart at 123.48, which is the culminating high of all the action since that dreadful 6 to 9 March weekend when the market went into freefall. If it can move over 123.48, it is flagging upside of 300 points or more, and it would have a positive effect on the rest. So the message today is watch for guidance, watch RBOB at its 5-day moving average. That is an indication of momentum and staying up and staying with upside potential. If it fails at the 5-day at 119.58, then look for a test of the 8-day at around 116.04, which must not fail, otherwise this uptrend's toast. Equally, if it moves over 123.48, it's reinvigorating the uptrend and we are likely to see generally higher numbers. So RBOB is a must-watch contract this morning. WTI, here you can see very clearly the move through the 5-day, the red line, down to the 8-day, and then a pretty good close. However, it's below the 5-day today, around 38.46, hasn't tested the 8-day at 37.64. Very simple. Over the 5-day, upside momentum reinvigorated, and we're probably going back up to 40.11. Failure at the 8, which would probably mean that RBOB's failed at its 5-day, then we go down to the 13-day around 36.26 area. So watch the 5 and 8s. This negative stochastic is not great, but short-term moving averages, most notably the 5 and 8s, outrank stochastics in the technical pecking order. August Brent exactly the same, below the 5-day now, but before we go to that, look how it held the 8-day beautifully on the blue line yesterday, very clearly. Now, it closed above the 5 and 8s, and today it's between the 5 and 8s. The 5-day is resistance around 40.97. A move and close over there and then taking out 41.89 would indicate some further upside, and the uptrend is very much intact. So the 5-day is a key pivot around 40.97. At the same time, the 8-day around 40.32 must not be moved and closed below. Otherwise, we've got downside on a slingshot move to the 13-day at 38.83. As far as the crudes go, it's the 5 and 8s that need to be watched like a hawk today. Heating oil is in the same camp as RBOB, although not quite so strong. Here you see the 5-day yesterday briefly breached and then rallied well. Today, if the 5-day comes in around 112.88, it must hold, or it slides to the 8-day at 110.40. A slide below the 5-day on RBOB and heat would merely indicate a loss of momentum. A failure to hold the 8-day, it puts the uptrend in serious trouble. The stochastic is still just positive. And July gas oil well above the 5-day, around 334.25. That needs to hold, or we're going to see a dip lower to the 8-day at around 327. In other words, it's in the product camp, not surprisingly, and doing okay. Now, if we look at a little back end stuff, Decred Dec TI, it's on its 5-day at minus 177. It needs to move and close over minus 176 to continue upside. It must not close below the 8-day at minus 199, or we're in for a correction. The stochastic is just positive, though wavering. And the Decred Dec on Brent, just holding above the 282 5-day moving average. So long as it doesn't close below the 8-day moving average at minus 303, the uptrend is still intact. And if we look at a 60-minute chart of the activity this morning, no real clear signals on August Brent at the moment. It's probably suggesting a little bit of downside early, and RBOB is definitely suggesting some downside early this morning. So we could easily see the 5-day moving averages come under pressure on the products, particularly heat and gas, or less so RBOB, and we could easily see the crudes start probing their 8-day moving average supports before the US comes in this morning. Watch the 5 and 8-day moving averages very closely today. They hold all the clues for the next leg. That's all for today, folks. Good luck, good trading, and bon appetit.